All right, today we are diving deep into the, let's say, provocative world of Robert Kiyosaki, the guy behind Rich Dad, Poor Dad. His whole philosophy basically challenges everything you and I were ever taught about money, jobs, and how you're supposed to build wealth. So buckle up, because we're about to question some really big, long-held beliefs. And this quote right here, this is the heart of his entire argument. He's not just saying the financial advice our parents followed is a little old-fashioned. No, he's saying it's flat out dangerous in the economy we're living in right now. So, what are these so-called obsolete rules? While Kiyosaki's whole point is that the game has completely changed, and if you're still playing by yesterday's rules, you're setting yourself up for a lifetime of financial struggle, not success. So here's the list. You know the drill. Go to school, land a good job, work your tail off, save your money, get out of debt, and just dump everything into the stock market for the long haul. Sounds familiar, right? Well, according to Kiyosaki, that whole playbook went extinct back in 1971. That's when the US dollar was taken off the gold standard. He says that single event changed the very nature of money. It wasn't backed by anything real anymore, and boom, all the rules for building wealth got completely rewritten overnight. Okay, so let's tackle the first big myth here, and you'll see how this all connects. We've all been hammered with the idea that saving money is the smart, responsible thing to do. But Kiyosaki flips that on its head and says, in our current system, saving your money is maybe one of the riskiest things you could possibly do. And this is the question he throws out there. Seriously, think about it. If the government can just create trillions of dollars out of thin air, what does that do to the value of the cash you've worked so hard to stash away? It completely changes the game. And here's where you see the two sides of that coin. For savers, every single new dollar that gets printed makes your pile of savings worth less and less. You're just getting creamed by inflation. But look at the other side. For people with debt, all that new, cheaper money actually makes their old debt easier to pay back. They literally get richer. And that all leads to this super blunt, kind of famous phrase of his. In an economy where money is just constantly being devalued, holding on to cash means you're actively, day by day, losing your ability to buy things. You're on a sinking ship. All right, let's talk about the next big idea, security. For most of us, a steady paycheck feels like the ultimate financial safety net, right? It's predictable, it's safe. But Kiyosaki sees it as a psychological trap that actually stops people from ever becoming truly wealthy. This goes back to a powerful story from his book. His rich dad taught him that the moment you accept a paycheck, something in your brain switches. You become dependent. You stop thinking about how to create value, and you start worrying about how to keep your job. It literally trains you to be a slave to money, not its master. And you can just see the huge difference in mindset right here. The employee is focused on security, that steady paycheck. The entrepreneur, they're focused on freedom and building assets. For an employee, failure is this terrifying thing you have to avoid at all costs. For an entrepreneur, failure is just data. It's a lesson. And maybe most important, employees work for money that gets taxed like crazy, while entrepreneurs learn how to make their money work for them. He tells this personal story that just nails the point. So when Kiyosaki was leaving his job at Xerox, a coworker, a guy who had actually tried to start his own business, failed, and then came back, said to him, "You're going to be back." Basically saying, hey, it's tough out there. You'll see. You'll be back for this safe paycheck. And this was Kiyosaki's response. It just perfectly captures that entrepreneurial spirit. It's not about trying to avoid failure. It's about deciding that, yeah, you're going to fail, but you're going to learn from it, get back up, and keep moving forward. You're never going back to that safe employee mindset. Okay, now we're getting to the idea that probably sounds the most insane to most people. We've been taught our whole lives that debt is evil. Get out of debt, stay out of debt. Kiyosaki, he completely flips the script. See, here's the thing. Debt and taxes aren't good or bad. They're just tools. Think of them like a hammer. For the poor and middle class, who use debt for stuff that loses value, like credit cards and car loans, that hammer smashes them. But for the rich, who use debt to buy things that make them money, well, they use that same hammer to build a fortune. And listen, this isn't just some theory he talks about. Get this, he recently took on $300 million in new debt. Why? Because by refinancing at a lower interest rate, his cost to borrow that money went down, which means his cash flow went way, way up. The man made a fortune by getting into more debt, not less. It's wild. So how in the world does this actually work? Well, first, you find an asset that spits out cash, like an apartment building. Then you use other people's money, the bank's money, to buy it. So for every $1 million of his own money, he can borrow $4 million more. The rent from the building then pays off that bank loan for him. And get this, the tax code is literally written to reward people for doing exactly this. And this right here is the mind-blowing result. He talks about his doctor friend, a high-paid employee who made $1 million and paid 750 grand in taxes. Kiyosaki made $1 million from his businesses and assets and paid zero, nothing. How is that possible? Because the doctor works for money, but Kiyosaki has his money and his assets work for him, which is what the tax laws are designed to encourage. So let's bring this all home. When you boil it all down, it's not really about debt or taxes or even paychecks. The real core of all of this is your mindset. It's what Kiyosaki calls your internal economy. And this is such a critical distinction. Look, you and I can't control the external economy, right? We can't control the stock market, what the government does, or if our job will be there tomorrow. But what we have total control over is our internal economy, our mindset, what skills we choose to learn, and how we react when we get knocked down. And this is what having a strong internal economy looks like. It's knowing that real control is inside you. It's understanding that not having that safe paycheck actually forces you to get hungrier and smarter. It's seeing failure not as the end, but as a trampoline to bounce even higher. Kiyosaki says it's in those moments when you are at rock bottom and have nothing left that you finally discover who you truly are. So I want to leave you with this final, really powerful question from him. We all check the expiration date on a carton of milk before we drink it, right? But when was the last time we checked the expiration date on our ideas about money? In a world that is changing this fast, maybe the most dangerous thing we can do is cling to old knowledge. It really makes you ask yourself, is my financial education expired?